So I guess we'll wait for a few more minutes to, well, I feel like I'm allowed to wait until all the people come in, and we will start the afternoon session. So we will start from the first is the TIFF's paper, which we did not finish in the morning, and then will be the session 2. Okay. Should we start now or wait a few more minutes?
I say you start.
Oh, it's done now.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Is this your talk?
It is. Yeah.
Just open the call. It's already open.
Press F5. Press F5. Okay, here you go. Hello.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay in the morning session. And that's just going to be a brief overview of our paper. And you can find more about this one in the poster session as well. And also, like reading about this paper is going to be more providing you more details. Just like a brief overview, what is the motivation behind this work is basically so far, the forensic work has been focused on, particularly in the audio forensics arena, this has been focused on mainly the developing new methods. Okay, so the performance evaluation is generally done on like a authentic data set versus forged data set. So that's what generally been done. Our focus here was basically what is the performance of these methods under the under attack, basically. If an attacker develop a method, then how can we just like find out the performance? So for that purpose, what we did, we actually selected one of our method that we have developed for audio forensics, which is basically using the acoustic features for audio authentication. That method, why we selected it, the reason behind that is very simple. One, it is our method. Second, that method is basically robust among existing methods. It is robust to compression attacks. It's robust to additive noise attack, etc. So we selected that method. So what is anti-forensic in general? Basically, in the morning session, you probably have already noticed this thing, that Morrow and other works actually highlighted this thing. This is a general framework. If you want to take a look at it, what happened if one, you have the tampered audio and you have the 4G detection algorithm, which actually extracts some features, whatever the feature that you're using for authentication purpose, and then you have the detection algorithm and you get the decision. In case of forgery, you get the tampered audio or recording or the image, whatever it is, and then you apply some anti-forensic methods on that. And then you get basically the anti-forensic processed audio, which is basically, or attacked audio, which is you like change it in such a way that it is outside the detection region, basically. So the feature set is also going to change now. And if you want to see it visually, that is how you can say, how you can highlight this thing. You have the audio, that is basically, or you can say detector, decision region or the detection region is there. So previous, your feature set falls within that one. Now, due to attack, you actually move that region, that feature set out of that region. So that's what you did. And basically, as I said early on, we want to evaluate the effectiveness. And this thing I already highlighted, we actually use the room impulse response or like acoustic environment signature for audio authentication. This work was this work is already published. So acoustic environment are pretty prevalent and they are very robust. And that method, the one that we use, actually it uses the correlation. So frame by frame, we estimate the room impulse response, and then we compare it with the reference, and then we just like authenticate it. And then after authentication, this is basically detail of the method that we use for audio authentication, forgery detection in audio. And performance of that method is very like robust, and we have done that thing early on. In attack, what happened in attack? For the attack purpose, what we did basically, we selected 3 methods specifically to remove the signature of like a acoustic environment. We selected 3 methods, and for those 3 methods, we selected these 3 methods listed here, remove the environment signature from the audio speech analysis, and then this is the approach in a block diagram way. This is how you can look at it. So we apply the de-reverberation. De-reverberation is basically removing the reflections, audio or acoustic reflections from the audio, and then we get the clean speech. We apply the splicing, and after that, we synthetically generated some of the acoustic signals, reverberation, and then we added it. So we got the anti-forensic speech, and for that, achieving that goal, these are the 3 methods that we consider. There are so many methods for de-reverberation that are available out there, and we selected only 3 of them. And evaluated performance of our system for those methods, and here is the result. As you can see, as I said early on, the top graph is basically, you have the forged audio without attack. And as you can see, system is capable to detecting the forged frames in the audio very reliably, okay? And then what happened is, when we apply anti-forensic attack on the top of it, then what happened is, this is the performance of all these 3, after these 3 attacks. And as you can see, our system totally failed. Okay, so that's what we were expecting, that if you remove the background noise or the signature, then like this system is going to fail. So that is basically one part of the work. The second part of the work is basically focused on what's next now. Okay, so should we stop here? We actually went a step further in this paper, and we said, all of us know that every trace, every process that we perform, it leaves its trace behind. So that's like in forensic science, that's like a basic theory behind it. So we actually follow the same process. We treated anti-forensic processing as another type of forgery. That's what we did. So we look at the other set of features, and the detail is very long. Like what we did in that one, we selected a lot of features and to capture the traces of anti-forensic processing. To capture the traces of anti-forensic processing, and here is the list of features that we use. We use spectral feature, we use the noise features also, and that's a block diagram. This is just like 5-minute small presentation on that journal paper, which is more than, I guess, 18 pages. So basically, it is hard to, compress everything that quickly. But anyways, so what we did basically, we look at what happened when you apply a de-reverberation. De-reverberation, when you apply that de-reverberation, it introduces its own signature fingerprints inside the recording. And we focus on that one. We look at the noise residual features. We look at the, what we call, music noise that de-reverberation actually introduces. So basically, those are the musical noise that is introduced due to de-reverberation. We look at that, and then this is the block diagram that we focused on, that we use for our anti-forensic attack detection, basically. So we look at the STFT features, we look at the, we consider the spectral shape features, modulation spectral features, and the musical noise feature. We consider all the features and then got the very long list. And then we apply on the, after that, because this is very long feature set, and then we apply feature reduction and apply the classification. And our performance is, here is the performance that we obtain for all three methods. And our detection is pretty good for the other two attacks. One attack, we were not able to perform very well in that case. And here are the performance. And I'll just stop here. If you have any question, you can ask me after this session. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Let's thank our speakers. So next will be our session 2, the system security. We have 4 papers. Each paper have 20 minutes. And we will postpone all our questions until the communication break. But in case you have very urgent question after talk, which you have to ask, then please raise your hand. We will take one quick question. So the first talk of this session is permission snapshots, assessing users' adaptation to the Android runtime permission model. And this is presented by
the first one.
Oh, sorry. The first author of the paper.
I challenge you. So the user-friendly version of the name is Panos.
Panos.
Panos, yes.
Okay, I never will pronounce that in Panos.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. My talk is going to be about Android, about the Android operating system. It lies more on the human aspects of security. And first, I'm going to introduce the problem so we can see the motivation and the aim of this study. And then we'll see how we did the survey and how we collected data. And then I will present some results and I will conclude. So if you're familiar with the Android OS, it comes in different flavors, I could say. So here you can see the latest versions. On the left-hand side, you can see the previous generation. On the right-hand side is the new generation. So you can see the Lollipop, KitKat, and the Jelly Bean version. And now the most contemporary versions is the Marshmallow and the Nougat. So I have put a VS in the center because last year there was a big alteration on the way that Android handles the security. So the previous generation, the permissions were requested from the user during the installation time. And last year this changed, so the permissions now are requested from the user during the runtime. So if you can see on the left-hand side, usually the Android users, before they install a new application, they see something like this. So it is a list of different permissions that will be requested from the user before the installation time. Now, or since 2015, users usually see this message. So if people are new to Android, they will understand that now they're running a new model. And you will see that, maybe you cannot see it right there, but you can see that the phrasing has changed. So it says, for example, that Pokemon Go version 0.29 may request access to the specific permissions. So now, with the modern model, if an app wants to access, for example, the camera or the contacts or the SMS, will ask the user. So the user is able to deny or allow the access to these specific resources. Here I just put two screenshots that have from Facebook. So here you see that Facebook is requesting permission to access the camera. Here it is requesting permission to access the storage. And that happens during the first time that the app is trying to access these resources. On the right-hand side, you can see that these settings can be handled through the Settings app. So for every app, we can see that we can check which permissions are have been allowed or not. Another thing that we can do is that we can revoke the permissions that we have already allowed to the system. So this probably would be would make users to be more keen on revising their permissions through the Settings app. So that was the motivation. So the aim of this study was to assess the user's adaptation and if they are satisfied with these changes. Also, we wanted to assess if user behavior. So we want to see their privacy and security preferences. And for that, we developed an app. We named it Permission Snapshots. And we also wanted to examine if users make persistent choices. So assuming that we have a series of different apps, the aim was to get these snapshots of the permission settings of each app and see if the users are doing persistent choices. In order to do that, to achieve the goals, we designed a survey. We developed this app. The reason that you can see the QR is that it is still on the Google Play Store, so you can QR it and try it on yourself. So we decided to distribute this app via the Google Play Store because it would seem more legitimate and it would probably engage more people from around the world. The idea is that when the user is downloads this app, they could agree to the consent agreement, and then they could provide the permission data. They would answer 6 questions related to this new user experience, and then they would send the data to the server, and they were able to see a small tutorial that would notify them about these changes. And that was it. Basically, it is a 2 or 3 minutes procedure. So very briefly, the questions that we asked is how long the user have been using the current version. So it was designed, the app was designed only for Marshmallow users. If they have noticed the changes that of the permission system, of the current permission system, if they feel that now they have more control on the data they share. Also, if they knew if they could revoke or not the permissions through the Settings app. Also, we asked them if they believe that the new runtime model is irritating. So we wanted to assess if the security fatigue. And lastly, we asked them if they prefer the old or the new version of the permission model. Here are some screenshots again. You can download and test the app by yourself. Everything is anonymous, of course. And that's another way to advertise the app. So the new version of the new model of the permissions for the Android permissions has a distinction of 9 dangerous permission groups. So when an app needs access to these specific sensitive resources, it will ask the permission of the user. So these resources are calendar, camera, contacts, location, microphone, phone, sensors, SMS, and storage. How did we collect the data? Basically, we used and we're using the public class package manager, the get package info, and we got these two public variables back. So we have the requested permissions and the requested permission flags. Basically, what we see is what you can see on the right-hand side, the permissions and a number next to the permission. I will just tell you right now what these numbers mean. So assuming that we have a user that has access, that has allowed the access to contacts and location, all the permissions that are related with this specific permissions will be 3, will have the number 3, and all the permissions that are related with the groups that do not have access to the system will be marked with the number 1. And that's how we collected the analysis, how we did the interpretation from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. Some results. First, some demographics. Most of the users, of the participants, we had 50 different responses from around the world. Most of them were male users. Most of them were aged from 18 to 30 years old. And they were residents of Europe, most of them. It was easier to advertise this survey through Facebook in Europe. Here you can see a representation, a geographical representation that we took from the developer console. And also I should stress here that we did this survey on June. During this period, it was quite difficult to find volunteers because we did not give any prizes to the people that participated because only 10% of the current users were running the Marshmallow edition. So it was quite difficult to find these 50 people that responded to our survey. So some responses. Most of the users that were using the Marshmallow edition were using it for 6 months, basically. Also, the majority of the participants had noticed obviously this change on the permission model, and most of them, they think that they have more control. They can control better the data, the personal data they share. And most of them knew that they could revoke or allow they could revoke the access to the specific resources through the settings app. They were not irritated by the fact that they were able to see more informative messages from the operating system, and about 75% of the people said that we prefer the new model. So we can conclude that the new version was positively adopted by the users. Regarding the permission data that we collected, the average number of installed apps per device was about 71, approximately 71. The maximum number of apps that were found in a single device were 283. That was a nice outlier. And the minimum was 19. The number of unique applications that were collected were about 2,000. So this data set is available. You can find it online. The average number of permissions declared in the manifest file of every app was about 12.37. The average number of dangerous permissions per app was about 3.85. So this means that about 30% of the declared permissions belong to a dangerous permission group. Some interesting outliers again. The app Baidu app search contained 180 permissions. You can compare that with Facebook that declares about 60 permissions. And the org thought crime secure SMS declared 20 permissions that belonged to dangerous permission groups. I think the second one is the Signal messenger, if I'm not mistaken. Here you can see the requests to access dangerous groups per device. So for each device, we created a stacked bar chart here. So you can see which of the dangerous groups that were more requested. And as you can see here, the camera, contacts, location, phone, and storage were the permissions that require more regularly access to these dangerous permission groups. We also created an average, calculated the average values of these numbers. And you can see, for example, that most 76% of the apps are requesting access to the storage. 58% are requesting access to the contacts, camera again, phone. So these are the very popular, if we can say, dangerous groups. Yes. So here you can see the accessibility of dangerous permission groups. So how many of these dangerous groups were accessible, were granted access by the users. This is quite a messy graph, to be honest, but it shows a sense of consistency in users' privacy settings. So, for example, for the first user, you can see that the accessibility it's in a range of 35 to 55%. For the second user, the accessibility it's in the range of 80 to 100%. So that shows a consistency. However, the previous results might be skewed by the fact that the Android system must be backward compatible. So if the apps are compiled with target SDK less than 23, the values that are getting for every dangerous permission is 3. So in order to make more robust conclusions, we only considered the apps and the users that used fine-grained settings. To do that, we only got the permissions of the apps that presented fine-grained settings. On average, approximately 60% of the respondents appear to selectively grant access to resources on specific social media and popular applications. Here you can see a graph that shows the accessibility again, but per app. So you can see that, for example, let's take Messenger, more than 75% of the users provided access to camera. More than 85% of the users provided access to the microphone and the storage. So we can see some common patterns here among the users. For Messenger, for example, the phone is not given a lot of access. One thing that we can see is the Telegram app, which is a messenger known for its encryption, end-to-end encryption. It shows quite a big accessibility. So maybe users trust the app and they provide more. They trust it more, so they allow access to this grant more easily. Some common patterns, as I said previously: LinkedIn, Skype, WhatsApp, They present higher rates of accessibility in the contact list, the microphone with messaging apps, the location with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Uber, of course. Another thing that we can underline here is that most of the people do not give access to the SMS. So probably they consider that the SMS is a very personal thing. They don't want to share it with other apps. And here we have another graph. It shows the user's behavioral consistency. So we defined the behavioral consistency as the quality of preserving similar user behavior when various apps, in our case at least 3, request access to a specific permission group. So here you can see again very high levels of behavioral consistency. Here I'm showing, I don't know if you can see it. These graphs are not in the paper, unfortunately, because we had no space. But you can see these consistency that I'm talking about. For example, for Facebook, which is the top left graph, you can see that most of the users allow the storage. For SMS, that's not the case. And these graphs, I think they show the meaning of consistency. If we take the average of all the users, you can see that the overall average behavior consistency among the 33 years users is about 83%. And to conclude, the majority of users prefer the new system, and they believe that they can control more drastically the sensitive data they share. We saw that 1/3 of the requested permissions belonged to dangerous groups. Storage, contacts, location, phone, camera were the most requested dangerous groups. Users allow access to groups that are directly probably related with their main functionality, as we saw previously, LinkedIn, contact lists, etc., etc. And in general, user behavior is consistent regarding the resources that they allow to social media apps to access. In the future, we want to assess users' trust to specific apps. We want to create users' privacy profiles, investigate if users' privacy settings and preferences change by time. And also, we have already written a newest version of the app. It will be online soon. So thank you.
Thank you, our speakers. We may have time for a very quick question, so if the audience have a question. Yeah, go ahead, speak loud.
You have certain groups like a permission to location, SMS, call them like dangerous group.
Yes, I don't call them. The Android developers call them.
Okay.
So it is a standard of the Android operating system.
Okay, why it's dangerous in terms of what?
It is dangerous because the developers of the operating system think that if an app needs access to your personal information, to this specific personal information, the user should know it.
Yeah, since the permission is already like the user agrees to it.
If the users agreed, yes. So this means that the user gave his permission. It is meant to be a more, it creates a dialectic between the system, the app, and the user.
During your survey, have you found like any application that take more permission than they should?
That was not the cause of this.
I think that's not the purpose of this research task.
The purpose.
Okay, good, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Salam Kanji. Am I right? Awesome. So the talk title is Forensic Analysis of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 Gaming Consoles. I mean, this is a very interesting talk.
Actually, we would share
Oh, okay. Can you set up the...
on the desktop. Where do you start?
You can close this one. Yes, the first one, the game console, right?
It was this one. Okay. I would like to thank you first for your attendance. My name is Raja Jaber. My colleague is Salam Khanji. And those who participated in this research are Dr. Farhand and Dr. Andrew as well. Our research is basically about forensics analysis of gaming consoles that are currently popular and available, mainly focusing on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. First, we're going to have a brief introduction. Then we're going to speak about the aims and objectives that drive this research. We're going to have a hands-on on the experiments that we have, experimental framework that we have proposed. And then we're going to share with you the implementation, the actual experiment implementation, the results that has been concluded, and the best practices and recommendation onward. Why gaming console forensics? We believe that investigators usually overlook gaming console forensics specifically, despite it being very popular and despite the very high chance of it being available in any criminal activities or available in any crime scene among the seized digital devices. So if we're going to speak from a forensics side, forensics analysis of gaming console is important and is relevant in today's world. It's also believed that the gaming console forensics is still immature, and there has been very limited research focus on this domain and this area. Thus, our framework was suggested. What's our framework objectives? Our framework findings serves as a guideline onward for exploring the current state of gaming console forensics, evaluating the applicability of currently available forensics analysis tools, acquisition and analysis tools, highlighting any challenges and limitations that are usually experienced when analyzing gaming console forensically, and hopefully contributing with primitive results and methodology that can help this area and this domain onward. Okay. Our proposed experimental framework, it has been mainly categorized into 3 categories. First, the forensics analysis before restoration. Restoration here, we're speaking about restoring the device into a factory setting. So when we did initially the forensics analysis before restoration, our aim was to forensically acquire the data and the evidence and the artifacts and do basic analysis on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, also aiming at locating the locations where those evidence has been found. The second part was forensically analyzing it after restoration. Here we did a restoration of the gaming console device to factory setting, which is the preliminary state when you first acquired the gaming console device. Here it's very important because it helps us in really assessing the anti-forensics status of gaming console analysis, gaming console forensics. Okay, that can possibly hinder the investigation. Third, we did a collection and comparison of the artifacts of both the gaming console evidence. Our experimental setup. We had 2 gaming consoles, as I mentioned. The first one, Xbox One, had an internal SATA hard drive with a storage capacity of 500 GB. We had also had a subscription to Xbox Live to allow online play scenarios, which is the typical scenario in today's gaming console usage. We did video recording using game DVR and also uploaded it to Microsoft OneDrive because nowadays most people usually upload their files or they share their data in a cloud environment. And we also installed Smart Glass, which is a tool that allows you to remotely or control the Xbox gaming device. And the games that we used here to perform our scenarios are FIFA and Minecraft. For PlayStation 4, we also had an internal SATA hard drive with a storage capacity of 500 GB. We did not have an online subscription for PlayStation 4. However, we used a wireless internet connection to also simulate online play. Okay, we have also installed the PlayStation app, which is the equivalent to a smart glass in Xbox One to remotely control and manage the PlayStation console. Here we also simulated the same scenario to have a controlled environment. We used FIFA and Minecraft. The framework phases and setup. First, to perform our forensics acquisition, we used the FTK imager. To do that, we first removed the internal hard drive from the gaming console, both Xbox One and PlayStation 4, connected it to a Tableau SATA bridge that also acts as a write blocker because stopping or preventing contamination of any original data is very crucial in any forensics investigation. We then used a laptop that had FTK imager, and we acquired a raw image, physical raw image of the hard drive itself. After we have controlled and verified that the image is sound, we did the forensics analysis on those images. The forensics analysis tools that we have used are the most common forensics analysis tools, and we wanted to really measure how compatible or feasible it is to really perform forensics analysis on a gaming console device. So we used the Access Data FTK Forensics Toolkit, we used X-Ways Forensics Toolkit, we used Autopsy, we used Magnet IFE Forensics, and we did also use Adroit Photo Recovery. We then did a network analysis to really see the feasibility of monitoring the network traffic between the gaming console and the environment and the activities that has been conducted. Here we used Network Miner. To control the experiment or to perform the experiment, we had a list of activities that we have performed on both the gaming devices. For PlayStation 4, we had booted the console, connected it to the internet, performed an update to the console, created accounts, played FIFA 15 single player mode. We played Minecraft single player mode and FIFA 16 online game. For Xbox One activity, we started using the console, then we performed the update as well. We activated the Xbox Live membership, and then we played the FIFA 15 single mode player, Minecraft single mode player. We downloaded FIFA 16 demo game. We also played single mode FIFA 16, recorded a video, and then uploaded it to Microsoft OneDrive using Upload Studio. Browsed YouTube, made Skype calls, accepted Skype calls, and played online games. And finally, we took some screenshots.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Salam, and I'll take over from my colleague Raja. As you have seen before from this slide, that we have actually communicated some of the conducted transactions, and the reason is that we want to document the timestamps so that we can map it later on in case it was difficult for us to map the current activity with what has happened before, after. So when we started to use the X-Ways, X-Ways actually helped us only in the search for keywords, but it was a tedious work since X-Ways presents the image that has been acquired in a hexadecimal, and you need to open the image that has been acquired in a chunks. Actually, when we acquired the image for both gaming consoles, each has 318 chunks, each of 1.5 gig. So imagine how many times we need to use the X-Ways to open and see or browse what is inside each chunk. This process is a little bit tedious because you have to know in advance what type of keyword you want to search for. Fortunately, we could find usernames, games that have been played, and so. Later on, we used the Autopsy. Autopsy, actually, it's an open source forensic toolkit. It also helped in the searching for keywords. However, this was a little bit more helpful than the X-Ways, as we have seen the file system entirely for the Xbox One. As you can see here, we could find, we have almost 6 file system partitions. The main one is the user content. which later we will talk about. And however, for the PS4, it wasn't recognized. And this is due to the PS4 operating system is proprietary. However, for the Xbox One, because it is from the vendor of the Microsoft, so it resembles to the Windows NTFS file system. So Magnet also, the autopsy allowed us to search for keywords. However, it was misguided with special characters like the @ character. So it guided us like we have an email, but it wasn't an email. It was like a garbage of characters and so. Then we used the FTK 5.5, which is the latest forensic toolkit in the Access data. But again, it only allowed us to view the file system for the Xbox One. However, for the PS4, we only asserted that it has 15 partitions, but we couldn't look inside because it was proprietary and encrypted. But the FTK allowed us to see the contents inside the file system. As you can see, this is the user content file system partition of the Xbox One. We have here the naming conventions. It's a series of characters that is difficult to understand, but because we map, if you remember the activities that we conducted using a timestamp, we could map each activity that is undertaken to the naming convention. So what we did is that we have downloaded and purchased lots of games, lots of applications from the market, and then we mapped it and built a database so that forensics analysts can later on use it in their investigation. But you have to bear in your mind that this application is only local for the UAE market, because I believe each store has different applications and different downloadable games. For the Magnet actually, the reason we suggested to use it, because Magnet offered or supported the Xbox 360 series, the previous generation of the Xbox One. However, it couldn't support us with much help. It was almost like the FTK 5.5 with limited resources, as in searching for keywords and so. Once we reach this dead end, as you can see, most of the latest forensic toolkits offered little help, so we shifted to the live analysis. Though live analysis might contaminate the evidence, and the evidence might not be admissible in the court of law, however, in some cases, this will be acceptable as long as these alterations are minimum, well-documented, and repeatable. What we have gained from the live analysis for both gaming consoles is the user's profile, the playing history, trophies, IPs, secondary and the main domain name servers. And this actually would help the investigator to create evidence in a chronological order so that they will correlate it in the presence of a temporal order, for example. Before also we restore, as my colleague Raja mentioned, we have used two different applications that have been downloaded. One is for the PS4, which was the PlayStation application. We downloaded it on a iPhone. And the other one was the Smart Glass. We downloaded it in the Windows laptop. These are the two activities that we have conducted using these two applications. These applications, you use it only to turn on, turn out, or even to remotely play your games using your phone. But you have to take into consideration that both the gaming console and that application must use the same network range or the same network connection. Unfortunately for the PS4, we couldn't map the activity because the network traffic using the network miner showed us that it is encrypted and we couldn't find so much data. But for the Xbox One, since its file system resembles the Windows, because both share the same vendor, which is the Microsoft, we could map and ascertain some of the activities that have been conducted, as in user logging in, user sending the message. However, we couldn't read the message because it was encrypted. User downloaded a game, purchased the game, and so. As you can see, Then we did the post-restoration analysis. The reason for that is to measure the anti-forensic status. So how much restoring both consoles into their default settings might hinder the investigation process. Actually, both of them, when we restored them to the factory settings, all users' accounts, downloadable applications, and saved games were erased. But once you log in, if you log in using the same username and the same username accounts and so, all saved data can be retrieved back, but not the downloaded games. However, this is not much helpful because suppose the criminal you don't know his username or her username and password. So again, you are in the same infinite loop. In summary, as you can see, this forensic part is still immature, and most of the recent forensic toolkits has little applicability on this investigation side. So the research actually focuses the direction or retrieve the direction for this to come up with some of the forensic toolkit that is customized for the for this investigation of the gaming console. You want to continue?
As an outcome for this research, we have concluded the best practices and best practices methodology. First, we have to properly identify the current gaming console engine that we are aiming to investigate. Then we have to know what type of artifacts and also the proper way to acquire it from live systems while the console is on. So in this stage, we are looking for usernames, any messages that are available in the gaming console itself, the IP address used, the live membership ID, and any videos recorded or saved games. Third, we have to acquire the image physically by removing the internal hard drive. However, we have to use the write blocker. As we mentioned initially, the write blocker is essential to avoid any contamination of the original hard disk and the original evidence. Fourth, we can analyze the image if possible using available forensics tools. In our cases, we've noticed that it's still immature. However, we have faith that moving onward, it will become more stable, and it will be investigators and forensics analysis will focus more on the gaming console area. Then we have to undertake keyword search. Here, usually we are utilizing any information that we currently have about the crime scene, the user who are using the console, because using the keyword search, you have to have a prior knowledge about what kind of keywords you're looking for. Sixth, we can also analyze the network traffic to see what are the videos that are being played, what are the website browsing histories, the user logins, and any purchased or download applications and games. The challenges and limitations. There are inadequate knowledge about the gaming console operation and functionality. There is a lack of, currently there is a lack of well-trained digital forensics investigators in the game console area for the examination and the artifacts identification. Inadequate knowledge about social networking applications, which can be used by various gaming console, because now they're connecting to the internet directly and they're communicating with different gaming console users. Vendor implementation of preparatory file systems, like in the case of PlayStation 4, there is limited information available about that operating system, and there is it's not supported by the existing forensics analysis tools. Lack of gaming console specialized forensics analysis tools, as we mentioned. Limited documentation and information about the gaming console architecture and system setup and all this. Developing applications which can control the console from distance further complicates the forensics process, because no longer the criminal is required to be in the same area. If he can access the network, then he can control the device itself. The ability to store the user's data and files into the cloud infrastructure. So this also complicates and adds another level of complexity to the investigation scope. In conclusion, our research mainly focused about examining the current state of gaming console by examining the readiness and for forensics investigation. Also, it aimed at examining the applicability of the available forensics tools when analyzing the gaming console engine forensically. We hope to direct the spotlight toward this area and toward the need of establishing a strong foundation and knowledge about the gaming console structure and functionality, exploiting the availability of available approaches and tools to extract evidence and information from Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and also addressing the limitation and challenges while analyzing the gaming console engine. In conclusion, we hope that this research had contributed to this and focused the light on the current challenges that we have in this area. Thank you so much for attending and for listening.
Thanks. Let's thank our speakers. We may take one very quick question, although we don't really. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give some specific example of crimes that have been committed using gaming consoles?
Crime that has been committed using.
I believe one was in the USA. One teenager, imagine he was only 18 years old. He disseminated several messages all over, let's say, the United States, threatening that there is like a bomb or something. So all the US force and the national force tried, for this false alarm. They actually, this happened in 2014, I believe. And they tried to backtrack this guy maybe for 2 years, and then they end up that he's a teenager, 18 years old, and he conducted this criminal from his Xbox console. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thank you. Yep. So the third talk is about cryptographic randomness on a CC2538, a case study. It's presented by Yan Yan. So you need to use your own computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just tested before.
So there might be a live demo, so that's why, the speaker is switching to the laptop. I hope this switch is successful, so we don't need to wait too long.
Okay. Let's see how
Yep, it's there.
console. There's a problem with it. I can't see the mouse. Hello, everyone. My name's Yan Yan. I'm from University of Bristol. I'm here today to present our recent work, Cryptographic Randomness on CC2538, a case study. Oops. Sorry. In this paper, we investigated this IoT-oriented device, CC2538, about its randomness or random number generator design. So the work is done with my supervisors, Elizabeth and Theo. So CC2538 is a system on chip launched in 2012 by Texas Instruments. So actually, this is an actual device. It's just about this big. This device features high performance, 15.4 compilant, and low power consumption, and is well supported by the Contiki OS, and it has several cryptographic hardware accelerator implemented, including ECC, AES, and SHA. So this basically advertises this device for secure applications. Now, let's take a look at the random number generator. So basically, there are two types of RNG. The first is true RNG, which samples some entropy in the physical source. For example, many Linux distributions uses the hard disk noise as the system randomness. And the second type is pseudo RNG. So basically, pseudo RNG takes a seed from a TRNG and uses some hash function or encryption algorithm to transform it into a series of random numbers. And the reason we need PRNG is because they are more efficient and sometimes have better randomness. So in cryptography, a typical usage of the RNG is for key generation. So this is a code slide taken from the Tiny DTIS implementation. And specifically for this code, so this is the ECDSA session key generation. We can see on the highlighted line, we see that the secret session key is generated by repeatedly calling the PING, and the public key is just the scale multiplication of a base point and the secret key. So historically, ING vulnerabilities has been reported several times for IoT applications, specifically for these blocks. So they are reported on some smart meter applications, and the device is actually the predecessors of this 2538. And because they have some really, really bad random number generators, so the ECC schemes are basically broken. Totally broken. And sadly, we realized that the company doesn't fix this in the later device. So this is the PING in this CC2538. So basically, it uses a CRC16 register as a PING. And when it is used in this way, the input bit is set to 0, and the register performs 13 times of the CRC16 calculation and outputs the result as a random number. So the problem here is quite obvious because the algorithm is deterministic and the register has only 16 bits. So basically it means that if we use this PING to generate secret key, then there could be no more than 2 to the 16 possible values, which is about 65,000. And this is just far not enough for cryptography usage. So as an example, this vulnerability can be exploited to break the ECDSA, ECDHE, ECDSA cipher suit. So for ECDHE, we can revert any one of the scalars, and then we can compute the shared secret. And for ECDSA, we can revert the session key and compute the long-term signature key. So basically, it's totally broken. So now the PING is broken. Now let's take a look at the TING. So in the user's manual, it stated that for this device, there is a specific register that takes the radio noise in the air and outputs a random bit. And we run some tests on this method. It shows that the randomness is actually pretty good. But the problem is that for these devices, it's normally expected to be deployed in an open area. And if sampling the radio noise as the randomness source, then why can't we just send some jamming signal to bias the seed? So we try to do that. But the first problem is that it only says it's from the radio noise, but it doesn't state how this is encoded. And it poses a great difficulty in our work. And specifically, in its document, it doesn't say anything about how this is done. But when we look at its siblings menus, we found something interesting. So in this 2430, we found the whole circuit design. Well, not exact circuit design, but the module design of the radio part. And specifically in 2520, we can see that the random bit is actually coming from the I-channel ADC or Q-channel ADC, and it's just take its least significant bit as a random bit. So now we know how the radio noise is encoded into a random bit. Then the next question is, how do we bias it? Actually, the idea is quite simple. If we can somehow fix the input to the ADC, then we will have a constant output, which eventually means that the random bit will be a constant value. So we try to do that. But in practice, the noise in the radio poses a great difficulty in this attack. So this is an example of automatic gain control circuit design. We see on the left-hand side, if radio noise is added to the input signal, then the noise will be amplified at each stage. And remember that the LSB actually represents the smallest voltage difference that can be detected by the radio. So basically that means that annual radio noise will flip the bit. And to tackle this issue, our solution is actually quite simple. We just saturate the circuit. That basically means that we apply an extremely strong signal to the circuit. And in this case, the noises will become negligible, or sometimes it might behave weirdly. It seems like this method actually worked. So yeah, I'd like to show a demo. So this is CC2538, as I explained. And I've got the program running on it, which basically runs the TING and samples 128-bit random seeds from the air. So basically we can see the seed looks pretty random at this stage. And so this is a software-defined radio. So basically, if you can program it to send any radio signal, and that's what it does. Well, I hope it still works because there is some kernel issue. Oh my God. This is the horrible case. I'm afraid because there's because there's a kernel issue on this device, so I might need to reboot the system. Well, so probably I can't do the demo, but if anyone's interested, I can show it later. Yeah, so if anyone's interested. So I will just go back to the slides. So actually what happens is that when we apply the signal, we realize there are some abnormally long continuous zeros in the seed, and this is the result. So on the left-hand side, this is the frequency of 0. So basically, the attack doesn't work until the signals has reached some specific strength. So we see that about 12 dB, then the frequency of 0 goes up. And the other chart is the longest continuous zeros in each seed, and we see basically is consistent with the frequency. And